Hi everyone, hope you all are doing good and wish you a very happy new year. Let me just brief you in these 5 days what we are going to do. It will be 1 hour long session. It might get extended by 10 to 15 minutes depending on how we are going and based on the question answers we are going to follow. Today's session is all about theory. I will bore you a lot with the presentation and if you may have any questions you can ask me throughout the session. I'll also ask you in the middle of the presentations. Day 2 and 3 are full of exercises. So if today you have not joined the sessions from your personal laptop or from the system where you have Eclipse, tomorrow and day after tomorrow please try to join the same, and day 4 and 5 it's okay if you join from the mobile also, because those are also kind of theoretical sessions only, but they will be very helpful for you to cover much more than the basics of RAP. So thank you all for joining the session, and let me quickly share my screen. Before that, Rohit, can I ask you if you have any trouble keeping the session on?
Yes, Sachin. When I connect, it's like disconnecting. When I connect with my Bluetooth, it's
Yeah.
getting disconnected times.
Okay. So it's not the issue with
Yeah,
Teams,
that's the
right?
reason I'm joining multiple times. Yeah.
Okay. If you have any trouble with
Now it's
signing in
fine,
from,
Sachin.
okay,
You're
it's fine.
connecting.
Glad to know. Okay. Then I'll share my screen now. And if you guys have any doubts throughout the session, please feel free to ask. So let's start. My name is Sachin Artani. I am an SAP web developer with more than 6.5 years of experience in IT, and particularly in SAP RAP. I am working for nearly 4 years now, and for the next 5 days, we will be learning a lot about RAP, BTP, and lot of cloud ABAP on cloud terminologies. So before we directly jump in to know what RAP is, we should understand why RAP came into the picture, how it all started. So from the beginning of SAP till 2014, when we had the ABAP platform version 7.4, we used to follow classical ABAP programming language, where whatever solutions we used to deliver to SAP, they were mostly in SAP GUI in the form of module pool, such as like for creating the materials we had that MM01 transaction, MM0203. Same goes for customers and all. And we also had something called um, web intro applications, floor plan, and web client UI framework. Everything was like that you must have your SAP GUI software installed on your system. Those things we used to call as SAP ECC systems. And what were the limitations? Why SAP came with new things all the time? First thing is that none of those solutions were really compatible with web browsers. There was no web application solutions which could support multiple devices. Like if client says that they want to access the any tool from SAP from where they can create materials or sales document from web browser, from mobile phone, those things were not possible. Second, lot of freestyle programming was there. Like whenever there was any enhancement used to come for again, I am taking the example of material again and again because it is very much familiar to everyone. So if the requirements come for any kind of enhancement in any of the screen while creating the material, people used to directly check for the user exits or modification, and they just do it without thinking of the consequences that they might face during the upgrades. So and then the upgrades used to go for like weeks or months. And then complexity, like people used to make a lot of complex code, and it used to create mess a lot, for not only for the developers but also for the SAP people, because whenever any customer development's performance used to suffer from like the it used to degrade a lot. For that purpose, people used to go to SAP that yeah, my this custom program is working very slow, kindly help us. Then SAP used to invest their time checking out what is going wrong. Then they used to give some suggestions in the form of a BPP or document, and lot of things were there for which SAP wanted to make some changes. So in 2015, SAP came up with a new programming model which was for SAP Fiori. SAP Fiori and SAP UI5 were introduced at that time, which were using the open source languages such as JavaScript and XML and a bit of HTML and CSS as well. And along with that, a lot more terminologies came up like OData, creation of OData in SAP GUI using the T code called SEGW, which is basically the SAP Gateway Builder. Then something called CDS View, a new framework based on CDS View which is called BOPF, that is Business Object Processing Framework. And everyone thought that yeah, we got something, we now have something. But despite that, in 2015, 16, 17, SAP faced a lot of problems again for the very same reason that lot of solutions provided by SAP in the form of SAP Fiori applications were not really compatible for the users who were using adapting the brownfield implementation. And not just that, there were a lot of limitations also, like the draft capabilities and freestyle coding again. Like whenever we create a UI5 application also, we do everything custom. We create custom views, controllers, and whenever the upgrade time comes, again we face the same problem. Again the same complexity arises. So how they are going to manage all those things for complexity of even for the small requirements, upgrade issues, and all those problems. In 2018, in the late 2018, SAP came up with something new called SAP Cloud Platform, which now known as SAP BTP, and a new environment in S4 HANA, which is called ABAP environment SAP S4 HANA. Along with that, they also brought a new programming model called RESTful Application Programming Model, which tried and is still trying to cover all the limitations which the earlier model had. So that is how the evolution began, and we will going to see in the next slides what exactly RAP do so that it is covering all those limitations from the earlier models. Below is the link for the reference, this one, that after I'll share this slide, the whole presentation with you, you can go in there and read the whole evolution in detail, how exactly all those things happen, and the more detailed version of what I just conveyed. So for learning RAP, there are two prerequisites that I also mentioned in the description of these sessions. First is OData and second is CDS view. So let us first understand what OData is. If we go by the definition, OData means Open Data Protocol, which is a service protocol for simplified access to SAP data. But what exactly does that mean? So it's like if I go to any web browser, there is a website. As we know that RAP is for creating the web applications. If I just reload this also is indirectly a web application called sitepoint.com. It's a website. As soon as I clicked on this reload button, I see here in the network tab, lot of things happened and lot of resources got loaded. What are all these resources? How this is happening? That I am the client and there is some server in a remote location where I am passing the request via this URL, and that is giving me this response, this HTML page in response. So for doing this communication, there are some standards which are set when the internet, the WWE was created, and that standard is known as HTTP. HTTP means Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which are some set of rules for smooth communication between two remote computers. So whatever we see here, all the resources that I am fetching from remote server, and some of them are properly coming to me, some of them are not receiving, where we can see this status coming is in red color. So initially HTTP came. Okay, all those properties of HTTP were like client server architecture, where I am the client, someone is the server, I am sending the request, is either giving me the acknowledgement or not giving, but ultimately I am receiving some output from them. Sorry, that's one thing. Then on top of this protocol, a new architectural style came called REST, that is representational state transfer, which is architectural style. You can also call it a protocol, where there are more rules which were established and more properties uh, were created on top of HTTP. Let me write it down so that it will be easy for you to understand. HTTP initially came, which is for communication between two remote server. On top of HTTP, REST was developed. What is different in REST? Along with what capabilities HTTP held, RAP also had things like stateless, that it will send a request and doesn't wait for the response before sending the next request. It can keep on sending the request, and as soon as it will receive the response, it will act accordingly. Then the client server that we just learned. Then caching. Caching is also part of it, where we can see that some pages get loaded in our web browser, and even if we don't have the internet connectivity, or even if um, the network is wrong, we were able to see the page because it is loaded in our web browser in form of cache. Then lot of similar properties of REST came, such as layered system, which means that the client doesn't need to know whom it is talking to. Like, I am sending the request to a server and I am getting a response, but I don't really know if it is the server who is sending me the response or the cache memory from where it's picking from the last communication that I had with the server. So there are a lot of properties which were created on top of REST, on top of HTTP, and called it a REST protocol. On top of this two, OData came, ultimately called Open Data Protocol, which is again a wrapper of REST, and it also provide more filters, more query options for retrieving the data from remote servers. What are such query options? Let's say I send a request to a server that I need 100 materials. Now, out of those 100 materials, if we know about Mara table, we know that there are 100 plus fields in that table. So, which fields I am trying to pick? Can I mention that when I am passing the request? With OData, yes, you can. There are query options, like when you are writing the URL, you can write like this: select equal to, then metnar, and whatever fields we have in the table. Likewise, there are multiple query options now available with the help of OData, such as top, skip, select, filter, etc. There are some more security features available in OData for making the communication more strong and robust. For XSRF, XSRF token based protection mechanism is there. Versioning is there, so that we can create multiple versions of a same OData API. Likewise, so ultimately OData is the wrapper of REST, REST is a wrapper of HTTP, and OData is not developed by SAP. This is developed by Microsoft, and there are 4 versions of OData, but SAP found that the version 2 of OData and version 4 of OData are the most compatible version with which align with the business requirements of SAP. That's why we only get to hear of these 2 versions in SAP, not the version 1 and 3. And in this, there are multiple ways we can create a OData service, which is ultimately an API, you can say. An API is like a remote URL which is bringing some data to us from some other server. So there are multiple ways we can create OData in SAP, as you can see in the screen. Okay, let it be. As you can see in the screen, we have something called SAP Gateway Builder. If you have ever worked in SAP GUI in SCGWT code, we access the SAP Gateway Builder through that transaction, and in that also we have a lot of multiple ways to create the OData service, through directly creation, everything manually, through importing something from a DDIC structure or a RFC or a data model file or a search help, and then something where we can make use of a existing CDS view. We will learn what is CDS view in a bit, but this is another way. Second way is, if you are already upgraded to SAP HANA systems and you are adopting the culture of that, you can create OData service on top of CDS views directly without need to go into the SAP Gateway Builder. Third is through RAP, and fourth is through KPM. So in this series of sessions, we will be going through only for RAP, not for the other options. So till here, are there any questions? You can ask if there are any question till now, otherwise we will move to the next slides. Okay, silence means no. So we will continue to the second building block of SAP ABAP RAP, that is Core Data Services CDS views. Now if we go with the definition again, it is very weird. SAP ABAP CDS views are semantically rich. SAP ABAP CDS views are semantically rich data models which follow code pushdown techniques. In this definition, we see a lot of terms which we are not familiar with, like what is a data model, what does semantically rich data model mean, what is code pushdown technique, and I hope that everyone knows what is a view. A view is a projection of a data source such as a table. So let's begin with data model at first, because we need to understand what exactly a CDS view is. So a data model consists of entities involved in a business scenario, such as if we talk about travel, booking, or a material. So travel, booking, material, sales order, purchase order, all those things can be considered as an entity, and if we are grouping them and creating a single source for all of them, that particular thing we can call a data model. How? If we give an example, let's say your client demands an application where he want to see data for material again. So the source of material data can be anything, not just Mara table. We can fetch the data of material description from MAKT table. We can fetch some more details from different tables like MARC or other material tables. So like that, there are multiple tables of material which could be involved to fetch the data from overall for a material, and we can combine them, we can join the tables, we can do something with those tables so that they are interlinked with each other, and overall solution we can call it a data model. That thing is the data model. Now how a data model can be semantically rich? So what does semantic means? Semantic in simple terms means attributes. Like when you started your career in SAP Web, you must have learned a lot of times the difference between data element and domain. What is data element? Data elements define the semantic attributes of a table, like labels, search help, documentation, etc. And domain define the technical attributes of a table. That is what we used to learn. We used to tell to the interviewer every time they ask this question. So we know the semantics is something which help us to describe something about the data, like labels, search help, documentation, all those things. Likewise, for a data model also, we can define semantics and make it more richer, so that it is easier to uh, keep everything at one place, and we don't need to explicitly create different objects. Like for a database table, when we create fields, we um, create a explicit data element for defining the labels. It's not like we can there itself in the table itself we can write that, yeah, this field belong is having this label, all this search help. We need to explicitly create all of those things, but here we can do everything at one place. And that's what called as semantically rich data models. And for doing that, we use something called annotation. As you can see on the right hand side, support for annotations is one of the feature of CDS view. That is what it is used for, to make the data model semantically rich. The third term is code push down technique. What does that mean? Code push down is simply means that whatever data intensive calculation we are performing with our CDS view, we do all of that in the database layer instead of application layer. Because now, as we are moving toward SAP HANA, as we know, SAP HANA is an in-memory database, meaning that all this computation, like big calculations, it can easily take care of all those things in the database layer itself, so that when we retrieve the data to our application, like we write a select query in our report and select star from Mara, that's all. If we write simple query like that, we are fetching a whole bunch of Mara records. Like there could be millions of data in Mara table. Everything is coming to our server. After all that, if we are looping in the data, we are processing, we are writing if and else, case statement, all of those things. What we are doing, we are making our application server very heavy for computing. That's why sometimes when we execute a report, it takes 3 to 4 seconds also in a very heavily putted logic report. It takes a lot of time for execution or for processing the data and giving us the overall result. So for limiting all those things, so that everything happens in the database layer itself and we simply get the data as soon as we need it, SAP HANA came into the picture. And to allow that to happen, some objects were created, such as AMDP and CDS views, and table function also, which is a part of CDS view only. So that is code push down technique. And in CDS view, there are a lot of features that it is based on SQL. How does a CDS view look like? This is one example of CDS view. As you can see in my screen, everything in the line 1, something in the blue, starts with @ anything in the CDS view which starts with an @ is an annotation. And what annotations are used for? To make things semantically rich. If in line number 3 you can see define root view entity, something is written like that. Before that, if anything is written, that means the annotations belong to the whole CDS view, not for a particular field. And from line 10 onwards, if you see, one key is specified as travel ID, and after that lot of fields are mentioned from some source. And line 15 and line 17, again we have some annotations. Those are particularly for the fields below to them. Like line number 15 says semantics amount currency code is currency code, and line 16 says booking fee. That means that booking fee is an amount field for which the currency, what kind of currency should it hold. So we are providing a semantics on line number 15 that, yeah, there is a field called currency code in the same CDS view which should be the currency code for the booking fee. That is how annotations are used. Then if we go back and see, first feature says based on SQL. If you guys know SQL already, it is like we are structured query language where we are simply use select queries, insert update queries for fetching the data from database tables or views. In similar fashion, in CDS view also we do just like that. As you can see on line number 4, we have written something like select from DMO travel, which is a database table, and we created an alias called travel there, so that whenever we want to use some fields from the table, we can use the alias. Like in line number 10, you can see travel.travel ID, travel.agency ID, like on. Compatible across any database. It's not necessary that when we are using CDS view we are obliged to use SAP HANA database itself. It is good that if we are using SAP HANA, that means the code push down technique will be there. It will automatically be handled. But if we are not using SAP HANA, that's also fine. In that case, everything will come to application layer and then the computation will happen here. But still we can use CDS view in our whole ECC system also. Then rich set of built-in functions. When we create a view in SE11, what we can do? We can create 4 types of view, like database view, maintenance view, and I don't recall the other 2 views. But in all those views, the only thing that we used to do is making the field available from one table or multiple tables. That is all. We can just mention that fetch MA TNR material field from Mara table, fetch this field from this table, fetch that field from that table. That's all we could do. But what if we want to do some calculation also? For example, there is a date. We can see the example here itself. Line number 13 and 14 says begin date and end date. So what if I need one more field in this data model, which should be the number of days between begin date and end date? So is it possible to do it in CDS view? Yes, it is possible. How can we do that? If I just go with the theory, we can simply write end date minus begin date. It will count the number of days. We can put our alias as making a field name as number of days, something like that, and it will hold the number of days if direct subtraction of date is possible. But I am just given an example here. It's not like direct is possible. There are a lot of inbuilt functions available: date function, string function, currency conversion functions, quantity conversion functions. Lot of functions, case statements, and arithmetic operations are already available and can be used in CDS views. Support for annotation we have already seen. Then associations. If you are not familiar with the association line number 5 to line number 8, we can see what are association. They are special join, meaning that this join get established on demand. What does that mean? As you can see, line number 6 to 8, line number 5 to 8 as well, that we have something called underscore booking here, underscore booking, underscore agency, customer, and currency. But if you notice here, all those fields are coming from only travel, that is our source table. But what about these 4 things? What are these? These are the associations that we have established here with the relation between those 2 data sources, from travel to booking, travel to agency, travel to customer, and travel to currency. What can we make use of this? So the requirement comes like this is the data model for travel, let's say. Now a client comes up, say that they need 2 different kind of travel application. One travel application should hold only the customer from particular country, and another travel should hold only the data from particular time period, something like that. There are filters. How would you do that? You can use this data model. At the end, you can also create write a where clause, that where travel ID equal to that, where the customer country equal to that, like that. But if you modify this data model, how come you are going to use the same data model in a different application where the requirement is different, right? We might have different requirements, but we still want to use the same data model. For that purpose, we can create another view on top of this view, and there we can make use of fields which are part of these associations, like booking.booking id, agency.agency id, customer.customer name, customer country, like that. Everything will be accessible in the CDS view, which is on top of this CDS view. How? Because we have established association, not join. If we use join here, then we must specify all the fields which we are going to use, and there is no possibility that the CDS view which we create on top of this will hold all this uh, uh, where we can expose new fields from this source. So that is what associations are all about. Then comes the last part. The feature of CDS view is extensibility. It's not like the SAP created a CDS view and then the business requirement came to you and telling that, yeah, this is the CDS view for material. Say I underscore product is a CDS view developed by SAP, which fetches the data from Mara table ultimately. Now your customer requests that, yeah, I need few more fields to be available in our standard Fiori application of materials. So how would you do that? Ultimately, the data source is your data model I underscore product, which is a CDS view, and in the backend it is the Mara table. So first thing that could come to your mind is extend our Mara table using append structure or customizing includes. But what else? We need to extend this CDS view also with additional fields, but that is a standard CDS view I underscore product. Despite that also, there is a possibility that you can create an extend view on top of a standard CDS view. Those things were not possible when we used to talk about SE11 views, the basic views. So that is all about extensibility. Are there any questions so far? Otherwise, we will move to the next slide.
Sachin, what is the difference between this composition and association in the CDS view?
Yeah. So the main difference is that when we talk about travel and booking, the relation between them is composition. And you can see here something 0 dot dot star is mentioned. These things are called cardinality, which means for one travel record there could be 0 booking record or there could be n number of booking records. While in case of these associations, that means that for one record of travel there could be 0 agency record, and there can at most be only one agency record, not more than that, for all of them. Now for one travel record there could be multiple booking records, and here it is mentioned composition is like relationship of a parent and child. That means travel is the parent and booking is the child of travel, while these are all the siblings. Like travel has a sibling of agency, travel has a sibling of customer, travel has a sibling of currency. So these are different kinds of relationship between the two. And if I give you a better example of that, uh, if you are an ABAPer and you must if you have created a sales order or purchase order before, you might notice that for a particular sales order we can include multiple materials there. That means we can uh, have multiple materials
Yes.
in for a particular sales order. That means it is a material as a child of sales order.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So any other question?
Yeah, Sachin, one more thing.
Yeah.
The line number 6, follow to that association underscore agency on projection. Okay, what is meaning of that?
Yeah.
The dollar projection dot.
Yeah, so it's a general naming convention that whenever we create an association, whenever we define a relationship between the source and the different source, second source, at the time we need to link them somehow to using the common field. Like in join also we use something called primary key and foreign key, right? So similar way here also we do the same way, but how like in travel also we have something called agency ID. In I underscore agency also we have something called agency ID. How we are going to distinguish which agency ID belong to which one? So for that purpose, there is a standard keyword called dollar projection, which we can use in our source, which clarifies that yeah, whatever written after projection dot, whatever field we mention, it belongs to the source. Like here in our case travel, and whatever on the right hand operand we mention underscore dot, here we are already specifying that underscore agency belong to I underscore agency, so here it's clearly distinguishable. And it's not necessary that we need to write the projection dot agency ID on the left hand operand, we can also do on the right side, but this is how the good practice should go. So that's what dollar projection is about.
Yeah, it's clear now. Thanks.
Okay.
Sachin, I have a query on this thing.
Yeah.
So here, dollar projection will point to DMO travel, right? Like,
Yeah, correct.
and we have a alias here, right? Travel. Why
Yes,
can't we use travel dot agency ID instead of dollar projection?
we can use actually. It's just that
Oh,
this is how a standard process is followed, that even if you not create an alias, you can write here like slash tmo slash travel dot agency id, but for not needing to remember all of that, we can also use like dollar projection dot.
okay. So this is like a join condition if I take
Yes,
analogy
exactly,
as a join, right?
exactly, yes.
So is it required to have my condition like the field agency ID in my selection list?
And not necessarily. For the
Okay.
left hand operand, like whatever we mention in the projection dot agency ID, this one is mandatory. You cannot avoid it mentioning here, but the right hand operand, agency dot agency ID, is not necessary.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other question on this slide or on this slide?
Yeah, one more question.
Yeah.
So here you also exposed the associations you have written here, right? Is it a mandatory or is it optional?
They are optional, like depending on the requirement. If I need those details in the top cds view, which we might create on top of the cds view, then only we need to create here and then expose them here at the end. Otherwise those are
Okay.
not necessary.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, then we'll move to the next
Hi,
slide.
Sachin.
Yeah. Okay.
Does the associations always be 0 to 1 cardinality? It can be 0 to n as well.
It could be 0 to any also, depending on the requirement.
Okay.
They can also act like composition, but it is always a best practice that if for someone you are going to make a parent child relationship, always use composition. If for something you are not going to make parent child but of siblings or of friends, in that case it is advisable to use association. Is that clear? Okay, moving on to finally knowing what RAP is. So this is the slide I copied from the standard slide when in 2018 SAP finally made RAP public. At the time they created a course in a portal which is now deprecated, which used to call it opensap.sap.com. In that they created a whole complete course of RAP from beginning to end, what it is capable of, what are the things that we need to develop, how exactly we can create something and what kind of thing we can create. So there they used certain slides. I copied one of them. This is that slide, and there they mentioned this is the basic definition of RAP. The ABAP RESTful application programming model is a set of concept, tool, frameworks, languages, best practices for the efficient development of enterprise grade web applications. Now application means API also, or a proper Fiori application also. But what kind of concepts they are talking about, what tools, what framework, what languages, what are all those things, how we will know. So some of the examples, if we talk about concepts, some of the concepts are like business object, data model, query. Now in object oriented, it is it would be good if you guys know a little bit of object oriented programming language before you actually properly work on RAP. So in your free time later on, anytime if you want, you can go through some lectures on YouTube, basic object oriented. There we learn a concept of classes and objects. So in SAP we don't call it object, we call it business object. What is a business object? A business object is a common term which is used to represent a real world artifact, like a product is a business object, a travel, a sales order, purchase order, material, everything can be called a business object. Then data model, I don't think we need to again go with that, explaining that part. Then comes the query. What is the query thing that we are going to use in RAP? A query is a connecting interface for read-only access to the database in OData services, like for analytical reports, for list report, for processing the data. If someone requests that we need the live data query, like as soon as the data is updated there, we should be able to see the data here. For that purpose, we make use of queries, and there is a T code also where we create a query in SAP GUI that I am not able to recall right now, but that's okay. It's not necessary for you to remember all of these things. They are just for explaining that something like that also exists. And these are some of the concepts, not all of them. Then there are some of the tools. One of the tool is ABAP development tool called ADT, which is a plugin also of Eclipse and SAP HANA Studio, and also a standalone application, which is the only place where we create applications or an API for RAP. So for RAP programming, this is the only place. Then within ADT there are lots of inbuilt plugins which are actually an independent features of SAP, provided by SAP, called ABAP debugger, ABAP profiling. There is a separate plugin for ATC check also in Eclipse in ADT. Then comes the framework. We have framework of RAP runtime engine, which is act as a dispatcher. So dispatcher, like whenever I do something, like I clicked on escape button right now, so what happened? I came out of this slide. How did this happen? I sent a request to my operating system in my laptop. I told it that I need to come out of this slide, so it quickly checked whether there is any work process available or not for handling this task. If there is, it quickly allocated that task to that particular work process, and then it executed the task, and then it brought me out of this slide. All those things happened like that. So in RAP also, when we create multiple objects, so the request on any particular business object, if we are talking about material or sales order, if we send a request like I need to create a material, how that would happen? For that there is millions of lines of code written by SAP, and that particular millions of lines of code is called RAP runtime engine, and there are multiple different kinds of engines also, which are responsible for accepting the create request or whatever request we do for the business object, and then bringing us the result. So this is one of the framework actually. What languages? We have SQL. We have already seen CDS view involved with SQL. We have ABAP. It's not necessary that everything can be done just by creating a CDS view. There is always a requirement of ABAP. ABAP is never dead. Then there is something called EML, Entity Manipulation Language, which is basically created only and only for the business objects which we deal with in the RAP model. Then there are some best practices. There were more actually, but I lost that slide 2 years ago. So I jot down only 2 points for now. One is RAP BO contract and one is strict mode. So as I was telling you earlier, why RAP came? Why everything was not good with the earlier models, the Fiori model, classical programming. These are some of the best practices which restrict us to not do the mistakes or keep everything stable. Like you create a Fiori application with the help of RAP. After creating the Fiori application, after 2 months or 3 months, your client says that we need to upgrade our system. You say okay, we'll upgrade our system. For upgrading, you try to jot down all the points where your current solution could break. You start doing the SPAU SPDD activities in GUI. You find out lot of exits are there which could get lost, and we might need to keep the backup of them in some TRs and so on. But here in case of RAP, nothing would happen. Why? If you follow all the principles, all the best practices which SAP tells us to follow, even if upgrade happens overnight, you don't need to do anything. You just enjoy watching Netflix and nothing would happen. No code would break if you follow the best practices. For those purposes, there are some practices like strict mode, BO contracts, and there are multiple checks also. There's something called clean core analogies that we might see after 3 days. So all of these things are involved, which makes RAP model very robust, very stable for upgrades, and kind of easy also for doing the small developments. Like if the requirements come for creating a very simple Fiori application, you don't need to write whole lot of logics, hundreds of lines of code to do that. You can do within clicks also. Nowadays it is possible. How? We will see that in day 3. So this is all about the definition of RAP. In this slide, if you have any questions, please ask. So I am going for no. Okay. Someone unmuted, please ask.
RAP BO contract, what is that? I think I missed.
Yeah, I actually didn't explain it in detail. RAP business contract, business object contracts are that defines a set of rules for business object provider and the consumer which is implementing it. For example, we are talking about material as a business object. So we will establish some relationship like for this material, this is the stable version of it that we created, and this can be used for this purpose. For example, we want to customize our standard Fiori application. So for customization, what can we do? We can come to our backend. We might see how the application is developed. We see that there is a business object of material which is involved in that, and then we are going to customize it. What are the different ways of customization? So there could be multiple ways. Some ways might not involve an developer. A functional guy can also do the customization, even if it is required adding new field also. That is also possible nowadays. And some of the development, some of the customization may require an developer. So how we are going to specify those parts? For that purpose, contracts are established, And when we cover the day 3 and 4, at that time we will see more on how exactly the contract look like. And contracts are for BO meaning CDS view in our model. Okay, for the time being you just know that BO meaning CDS view, simple. I hope this much
Okay.
is clear.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move to the next slide. Architecture of SAP RAP. Every kind of model has some kind of architecture, like what how it all starts, where it ends. So in SAP RAP also there are 3 layers of architecture, starting from data modeling. First we define what data source we are going to use to create our application. We use a lot of CDS view, we use a lot of database table, we link them using join or association, we call it a data model. Then we specify what kind of operations are we going to do with the data model. Like we want to create a material, delete a material, modify a material, or there are certain custom actions like we want to send the material data to some third party application or via email to our clients. Anything could be a possibility. All those behavior we just define, we don't implement in the first layer. Then comes the second layer. Just a while ago I mentioned when I was what I was explaining at that time, I was explaining I guess the association, where there could be a scenario where one data model can be used for multiple purposes, for multiple requirements. So for that part we create CDS views on top of CDS views. That means we create projections. So the second layer here is the business object projection. For one data model there could be multiple projection. Each projection could be used for different requirement. Like first requirement could say that yeah, I need only this type of material in my application to be appear. Second says that I need this type of material, but I should also be able to email those list of material to my client, to my customers. So n number of requirements could be there, n number of filters could be there, but we can still make use of one data model by creating multiple projections on top of that. So the second layer defines projection for the basic CDS views also, and if we are going to use them in the analytics in that also. Then there is something called service definition binding that we will cover when we will do the practical day after tomorrow. The third layer is the consumption. Where exactly are we going to use that thing, whatever we created so far? We created a data model, we created the projection. Where exactly are we going to use this projection? We can use them in SQL based services for data integration, like we are passing the data of this projection to some third party application. We can create web APIs also to give it them to the UI5 developer, like take this OData service and create a complete freestyle application out of it, because there are a lot of things which are not clearly possible with RAP alone. So we need a freestyle development. What else? We have everything in RAP that could satisfy a customer requirement. For that purpose, we can also create UI based OData service with the help of RAP. That is the agenda, that is the part that we are going to do on day 3 in the class itself. And the last part is INA in analytics for SAP Analytics Cloud. When you want to access the live query part that I mentioned in the earlier slides, this is that part. So these are the 3 layers of SAP RAP. Any question in this slide?
Sachin, what is this analytical model and analytical projection?
Yeah, so CDS views are not only used for RAP, they are also used for analytical purposes, for creating the queries, for consuming them in the SAP Analytics Cloud. So for that purpose, we create simple plain CDS views. There are a lot of annotations for analytics which we specify on top of fields, like which field should be the dimension, which field should be the facts, like that. and which CDS view should be the queue, which kind of CDS view it is. Is it a composite view or a simple plain view or consumption view? All those things we define in this first layer in the analytical model.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the next slide. In RAP, we have two kinds of implementation. One is managed and second is unmanaged. What does managed implementation means? In any kind of solution, be it IT solution, non-IT, SAP, non-SAP, every time, again, if we take the example of material, there is always a possibility that the client would say that I need at least the basic operation. I should be able to create material, update the material, delete the material, all those things. So SAP knows that every time this basic requirement would come for the CRUD operations, create, retrieve, update and delete. So for all these CRUD operations, why not make it make it more standardized, so that you don't need to explicitly write the logic for inserting the data into the database table. Like when we create a basic report, let's say you are asked to create a solution where in SAP GUI itself, we are creating IC38 report. Someone is entering something in the report in the selection screen. After clicking on execute button, you have written lot of logics in the program that is causing some data to be inserted or updated into a custom table. So obviously you will be using two statements, insert or modify, or update also, just in case. So these are all the possibilities, right? Now, why do we always need to use the insert statement or modify statement? Why can't SAP take care of those things when it is very obvious that for insertion we will use the insert statement? So for that purpose, when we use RAP model, when we create web APIs or UI services in RAP, at the time, if we follow something called manage implementation, at the time the standard CRUD operation will work out automatically. You don't need to write the logic for those things. You don't need to write the logic for committing the data to the database tables. Everything will happen automatically without writing any single line of code. Where it is preferred? For greenfield implementation. Greenfield and brownfield, what is the difference between the two? So whenever everything is fresh for a client, the whole new solutions, there is no existing solutions of SAP that they are using, they want to start everything from fresh. They are asking you to create custom tables, custom CDS view, custom Fiori applications. At that case and that time, it is better if you use managed implementation, because half of the things will be taken care by the framework itself. You don't need to write the logic for those things, and leaving out the part like sending the email or sending some data to different vendors, or any kind of additional operation which are not the standard CRUD operations. You can still write the logic in the managed implementation, where developer can add BO specific business logic. And just like it is managed, this is unmanaged. Everything is your responsibility. So it is advisable for brownfield developments where your client is already using the SAP ECC solution. Now they want to switch to HANA, and they see that lot of things are there in ECC which are very bad, and they don't think like just upgrading the ECC to HANA would be sufficient. They want a solution instead of SC38 report. Now they want RAP based application or a Fiori application. In that case, still there is a possibility that there is a lot of code that they might want to reuse. So for that purpose, they will go with unmanaged implementation, where everything is their responsibility, your responsibility. Create, you need to write the logic for create, retrieve, I mean reading the data, update, delete also. For committing the data and for modifying the data in the application, in the transaction also, in the transaction buffer also, everything is your responsibility. So that is the difference between managed and unmanaged framework. Any questions here? Actually, I'll go with this slide now. Now you can ask any question if you have.
Yes, so in real-time projects, do we get the option of like um, unmanaged mostly or managed mostly? Like most of the projects are in what?
Actually, the current solution that SAP has provided in RAP, standard solutions,
Hmm.
as far as I have seen, you can say 60 to 65% solutions are unmanaged, and the rest
Hmm.
are managed with different kind of managed operations.
Because if something if something will be built from scratch, I think then only it will be managed.
Yeah, correct.
New things, completely new things.
Totally right.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
And Sachin, though it is brownfield,
yeah,
so if it is if it is related to an reporting part, right?
yes,
Can we go ahead with managed? Because like anyhow, we have to read the data from some tables and we have to show that as a report, right? So in such
yes,
cases, we can utilize managed, right?
yes, yes.
In all the cases, we can use managed. Okay.
Yeah, you can use manage for all the simple purposes where you just want to create a basic report for displaying the data, and some add-on functionalities also you can add there. Also, just now we are just seeing that there are just two types, manage and unmanaged, but in reality now in 2025 it's already came, but still if we consider 2024 also, there are three different kind of managed implementation, but you don't need to know that right now. It will be very complex.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thanks, Sachin.
yeah, okay,
Sachin,
yes,
yeah, one more thing. See, if client is using ECC on premise, okay, if they are going to migrate S4 now, so that time which one we have to use, the managed one or unmanaged?
actually it depends on the requirement. Like we should first analyze how many objects are there, how many code in those reports which we can reuse in our implementation. If it is like very less number of things which we can reuse in our new system, then it is advisable to go with managed implementation. If it is like lot of codes are already there which we can use, lot of custom tables are already there, that the client is saying that no, I still want to use those custom table, I don't want the new solution that SAP has provided, I just want everything to be available in the form of Fiori application, but still using the same database table, same logic which they have built over the decades. In that case, they will go for unmanaged implementation.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sachin, I have one more question. So, like,
yeah,
in current scenarios, like if we move to HANA, okay,
yes,
so currently, like the reports or any transactional applications, standard transactional applications,
yes,
so they're built on basis of RAP or Fiori because like the web applications, right? Fiori applications. So is
yes.
it built based on RAP, the
Not all
standard
of
one?
them, not all of them. Uh, there is one thing, let me show you.
Okay.
There is something called SAP Fiori library. If we go in here, this is the list of all the Fiori applications SAP ever created. If we click on all apps, for now I am directly opening the one which is built on RAP because I am aware of that, and that will be
Okay.
helpful for you to understand this one. There is a Fiori application called Manage Sales Order version 2. We can see here where we are going to use it, private cloud or public cloud. What are these two things? We will cover that after a few days, and then different version of those clouds. If I see here application type, it says transactional. That means we can perform transactions, we can create sales order, we can update or modify the sales order, or we can make the sales order activate or deactivate or whatever. In brackets you see SAP Fiori elements. Whenever you read this term, that means this application is built on RAP. This is one way of finding out. What is the another way? We go to implementation information, we click on configuration. What is the source of this application? Now this is built on RAP, but where from the data is coming from? You see here components are mentioned for UI5 application. These are the components. Here in OData service we see these two things, and here OData v4 also we have something. So in the latest version of managed sales order, the data comes from this OData service, which is c underscore sales order manage underscore SRV. If in Eclipse we try to find this object, and if we find it, and if we open it, and even after opening it, whatever gets opened, if it is still inside the Eclipse only, it is not opening SAP GUI, that means that is created in RAP. So this is the way to find out.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
Kunal.
Actually, this OData service just showed the C underscore sales order.
Yeah.
So this is basically a exposed CDS entity, right?
Yes, correct. This is actually not CDS entity. This is actually a if we go in the slide in this architecture, I mentioned this part we will talk about later, service definition and binding. So this part that we see here is a service binding, which may contain more than one CDS projections that we want to expose.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. We will see that everything in action day after tomorrow. So any further questions? If no, I'll share this slide with you, and there is a link mentioned at top of this slide, which is the link created by one of the developers of RAP, who developed RAP actually, whose name is Karin. And this link is like what you can say Bible of RAP, contains hyperlink to all the other references of RAP from 2018 to 2023. Whatever happened inside RAP, everything is mentioned within this link. So if you want, you can navigate to this link later on. Some more references that I forgot to mention earlier, that for knowing the whole history, how OData came into existence from internet, this is the link to know that. For those who want to learn the difference between OData v2 and v4, there is a link. I like the post of this guy, so I kept it here. And for if you are interested to learn how to create different kind of OData services, there is a link of a blog post that I wrote earlier, so you can follow all those things. And with that, I thank you all for being there in the session. And tomorrow we are going to do some hands-on exercises. So if today you were not able to join the session through personal laptop, please join tomorrow with the personal laptop or the system where you can access Eclipse, so that we can do the proper hands-on exercises. So with that, if there are
Yes.
any questions, you can ask.
Yeah, Sachin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Regarding this Eclipse, could you please share some links how to install this one? Because
Yeah, that actually we will do it together tomorrow,
okay,
because
fine.
I
Yeah.
know I have seen that people, if I just share things with them, they get lazy that we will do it later, and then if they stuck in the middle, they just stop doing that, and then they don't learn anything new. So for this purpose itself,
Fine.
I
Yeah,
kept
no
this
problem.
session for 5 days, so that I can do it in front of you and also help you if you stuck in the between.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So if is there any other question anyone want to ask? Okay, I take it as a no. Thank you so much everyone for joining this session today, and we will meet tomorrow at the same time. Please try to join at 7 itself, so that we will wrap it up before 15 minutes, unlike today. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day ahead. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Sachin.
you.
Thank you, Sachin.
Thank you.